Tonight, Justin Trudeau's parting words for Canada.
I will always be boldly and unapologetically Canadian.
His final full day as PM as Mark Carney is sworn in and tariffs loom large.
This is priority number one.
What we know about Mark Carney's cabinet and his first official trip abroad.
Premier Ford, what are you hoping to take out of this?
A high-stakes meeting in Washington ends on a positive note.
We feel that the temperature is being lowered.
But no sign Trump is backing down.
Canada only works as a state. As a state, it would be one of the great states.
A disturbing trend in the midst of a housing crisis. Landlords asking for sex in exchange for rent.
I don't mind helping you out if you're kind of helping me out too, right? You know what I mean?
CBC Marketplace investigates.
From CBC News, this is The National with Chief Correspondent Adrian Arsenault.
Thank you for joining us. Just hours from now, Canada will have a new Prime Minister. Mark Carney and his cabinet will be sworn in at Rideau Hall, capping off a lightning-fast transition of power at a precarious time for this country. A clearer picture is emerging tonight of just who will make up Carney's cabinet, which is expected to be slimmed down. And they will need to hit the ground running because this major moment is happening inside another as the U.S. and Canada are locked in a trade war. Tonight, urgent meetings have now wrapped up in Washington. We'll take you there in a moment, but let's start in Ottawa with who's in cabinet, who is out, and how Justin Trudeau is saying goodbye. Ashley Burke takes us through it.
Behind closed doors, Justin Trudeau wrapped up his last full day in office. The Prime Minister posting a brief farewell online titled One Last Thing.
But I will always be boldly and unapologetically Canadian. My only ask is that no matter what the world throws at us, you always be the same.
After almost a decade in power, Trudeau will head to Rideau Hall Friday and resign. Then his successor, Mark Carney, and a cabinet will be sworn in.
This is a group of people that need to be ready to face the threats that we are facing from the United States on the trade front.
Sources say since Liberals chose Carney as their new leader, he's been planning a much leaner cabinet, a team of 15 to 20 ministers, laser focused on fighting the trade war and on this promise.
Change that builds the strongest economy in the G7.
Sources also say these three ministers are expected to be part of Carney's cabinet, and some appearing confident they'll continue handling the trade war.
We will still be ministers during that period, or at least we'll see tomorrow. Certainly, no, it's there's a good chance.
CBC News has learned leadership contender Chrystia Freeland is expected to become transport minister, and Environment Minister Stephen Guilbeault will move to a new expanded role that includes Canadian heritage.
It is the prerogative of the Prime Minister to decide who will sit on cabinet.
Sources also say leadership contender Karina Gould didn't make the cut. Procurement Minister Jean-Yves Duclos is out too, and so was Health Minister Mark Holland, who endorsed Freeland.
The decision was made to go a different direction, which I respect. I think it's the decision was to make a leaner cabinet.
Holland also announced he won't run again in the next election, choosing to spend more time with his family. He's now one of 8 ministers who say they're moving on.
And Ashley, we're learning a little bit more about the plans for Carney's initial days as Prime Minister, too.
Yeah, Adrian, CBC News has learned that he's expected to travel to London and Paris next week on his first official trip abroad, then trigger an election before Parliament is set to resume later this month. Carney and his cabinet will have to handle this trade war with the U.S. while also campaigning. And it will be up to Canadians to decide next if Carney should be the one to lead this country and take on Donald Trump.
All right, Ashley Burke in Ottawa. CBC News will have special coverage of that swearing in of the Mark Carney government starting at 10 a.m. You can join Chief Political Correspondent Rosemary Barton and Power and Politics host David Cochrane on CBC News Network, CBC TV, and everywhere you stream CBC News. And of course, this is an ad issue night. Rosie and the team will be here a little later with their thoughts on Carney's cabinet. Now, some of those key cabinet ministers are in Washington tonight wrapping up a meeting on tariffs. They call it constructive, but not enough as to provide any new guarantees. And as Katie Simpson shows us, the tone from inside the White House is still as heated as ever.
Underscoring the circus-like nature of this moment. Ontario's premier was asked for a selfie and to sign autographs as he emerged from his meeting with the Commerce Secretary.
We feel that the temperature is being lowered. This, I can honestly say, was the best meeting I've ever had coming down here.
Doug Ford left Washington with nothing more than a promise to keep the lines of communication open. Still, that's seen as a new opportunity by the federal ministers also in that meeting, as they hope to repair the soured Canada-U.S. relationship.
There's potential for a reset as well, where you have now a new prime minister that is going to be sworn in tomorrow to make sure that we engage constructively, that we engage in respect.
We don't need anything.
But the president seems dug in, insisting he will not deviate from his tariff plan.
No, I'm not going to bend at all.
Sitting beside the head of NATO, an alliance both Canada and the U.S. belong to, Trump repeatedly attacked Canadian sovereignty.
Canada only works as a state. It doesn't. We don't need anything they have. As a state, it would be one of the great states keeping "O Canada," the national anthem. I love it. I think it's great. Keep it. But it'll be for the state, one of our greatest states. We don't need anything. We don't need the cars. I'd much rather make the cars here. Now, there'll be a little disruption, but it won't be very long. But they need us. We really don't need them. And we have to do this. I'm sorry, we have to do this.
The comment at odds with remarks by Pete Hoekstra just hours earlier, the man Trump has picked to be the new U.S. ambassador to Canada.
Would you agree that Canada is a sovereign state and should not be even jokingly referred to as the 51st state?
Thank you. Canada is a sovereign state, yes.
During his Senate confirmation hearing, Pete Hoekstra suggested the reason Trump keeps making threats against Canadian sovereignty, it's rooted in the personal relationship between Trump and outgoing Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, musing it could be Trump's sense of humor.
Yeah, well, I think it's long established that Canadians don't find it funny. And now Ottawa has launched, I gather, a new formal challenge to Trump's tariffs.
Yeah, Canada has started the process to register a formal complaint with the World Trade Organization over the new 25% steel and aluminum tariffs. It's Canada's second complaint this month, but it is worth pointing out these kinds of disputes and complaints, they can take years to resolve.
Indeed. Katie Simpson in Washington. A European Union counter-tariff on American bourbon has sparked threats of more U.S. escalation. In a social media post, Trump said if this tariff is not removed immediately, the U.S. will shortly place a 200% tariff on all wine, champagne, and alcoholic products coming out of France and other EU-represented countries. So far, the EU has not lifted its tariff. And layoffs have begun in the Canadian steel industry, with a small Ontario community facing the brunt of the first wave. Nicole Williams takes us to L'Original, where cuts to steel could be a crushing blow.
The trade war playing out on the world stage, now a harsh reality for this small community.
We are one of the cleanest steel producers in the world.
Iveco, the industrial pride of Eastern Ontario, announcing layoffs in the wake of 25% tariffs on steel and aluminum.
There's a lot of worriness, obviously, on the shop floor, and the people are concerned.
According to the union, a combination of permanent and temporary layoffs will affect 150 workers. That's about 30% of the workforce of the factory in the small village of L'Orignal. And people here are well aware this could be just the beginning.
The tariffs change daily with the Trump administration, so it's quite difficult to make plans around that kind of hostility.
It's a serious blow to a community where most people earn a living at the steel plant or have a close connection to someone who does.
They're one of the biggest employers. Iveco also helps the other companies surrounding Iveco.
Those deep-rooted connections mean the impacts will be felt beyond the factory walls.
There's a lot of truckers who depend on that place, a lot of restaurants, you know, all that stuff. It's a downward effect.
It's awful because the village is living with that.
Then there's also the fear that what's happening here may be a sign of what's to come for the rest of the country.
We can be certain that, unfortunately, more damage will be done.
The national union that represents steelworkers says government needs to step in, not only to help those here, but manufacturers across the country. There are 23,000 people employed directly in steel in Canada and 100,000 more in related industries. And so there is a lot at stake if this escalates or drags on. Nicole Williams, CBC News, Lorne-Yell, Ontario.
Trump's continued and growing tariff threats have rattled investors, sending markets diving, including the S&P 500, which is closed in a correction. The slide began after its February 19th peak, just days after Trump announced his metal and reciprocal tariffs. Since then, the S&P has fallen more than 10%, which is the threshold for a market correction. G7 foreign ministers met in Quebec at a time when Donald Trump's tariffs and threats have plunged U.S.-Canadian relations to new lows. The handshake between U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Foreign Minister Mélanie Joly was cordial enough. Joly reportedly thanked Rubio for referring to Canada as a country on a day when Trump again mused about annexing it. The meetings continue tomorrow. Russian President Vladimir Putin is calling out Washington's push for a ceasefire in Ukraine. He's calling it a good idea, but while Kyiv has agreed to an immediate truce, Briar Stewart shows us Putin says there are nuances to work out first as Russia advances on the battlefield.
As Vladimir Putin addressed the media alongside the leader of Belarus, Russia's president set a high bar for any ceasefire, suggesting it could give Ukraine a chance to rearm. The idea itself is right and we absolutely support it, he said, but there are questions we should discuss. Like, will it lead to a peace deal that addresses what he calls the root causes of the conflict, and who will be responsible for monitoring it? As a U.S. special envoy was in Moscow trying to sell the ceasefire, Donald Trump was meeting with the Secretary General of NATO.
Now we're going to see whether or not Russia's there, and if they're not, it'll be a very disappointing moment for the world.
These talks come as Russia has retaken nearly all of the territory Ukraine seized in the Kursk region back in August. It's where Putin said he visited Wednesday, and where he claimed Ukrainian troops are isolated and will either need to surrender or be killed.
Very hard. It's very hard.
Roman Kratsov is a medic who just returned from Kursk, where it's difficult to evacuate the wounded because many of their supply lines have been cut off. Even still, he's wary of a ceasefire.
I'm dreaming about peace too, yeah, but the price of this peace, this is question.
Ole, who is only going by his first name in accordance with Ukrainian military rules, was fighting in Kursk, but was pulled out after suffering a concussion. He got out of his vehicle moments before it was hit by a Russian bomb. He's in northern Ukraine. His 26-year-old son is fighting in the south. I can't say for sure whether we need an immediate truce, he said, but added as a father, he wants a ceasefire so his son can stop fighting. While Russia hasn't agreed to a ceasefire, Trump says that negotiations are already underway for a more permanent peace agreement, including the division of land and how much of Ukraine Russia might be able to keep. Briar Stewart, CBC News, London.
President Trump is doubling down on his desire to control Greenland.
Well, I think it'll happen. We have to do it. We really need it for national security. I think that's why NATO might have to get involved in a way, because we really need Greenland for national security.
Trump went on to question Denmark's right to the island. Greenland is an autonomous territory of Denmark, which is a NATO member. CBC Marketplace is going undercover to expose an illegal practice targeting young women in the midst of Canada's housing crisis. Ads are popping up online, offering them a place to stay in exchange for sexual favors. The Marketplace team answered some, and Asha Tomlinson brings us one of the conversations that followed.
I saw that I offered free rent.
We're undercover, meeting with a man who's posted an ad online. He's offering a warm bed in Hamilton, Ontario for a petite female.
When you say...
In the same bed, right?
What you're about to hear next gets explicit.
We fool around a little bit here and there, right? Sort of. If you're not into actually having sex, that's cool. We can do other things, right? I don't mind helping you out if you're kind of helping me out too, right? You know what I mean?
We found over a dozen listings on Facebook Marketplace and Craigslist seeking a sex for rent arrangement. Many target young women in college and university, international students as well. Would you call this a predatory practice?
Absolutely, it's a predatory practice.
Janine Benedette says soliciting sexual favors in exchange for free or discounted rent is not just unethical.
It's illegal. Anytime somebody obtains or tries to obtain a sexual service in exchange for something of value, they're violating the criminal code.
She says police forces need to do more.
We know that the single biggest deterrent to this kind of behavior is enforcement. It's the threat of publicity and real consequences.
We reached out to the Canadian Association of Chiefs of Police. It says if Canadians report these sex for rent ads, they will investigate. And what does the man we met with on hidden camera have to say? We called him. My name is Asha Tomlinson. I'm a host with CBC Marketplace. Can you walk me through why you choose to offer housing in this way?
I like to help people out. But anyways, have a good day.
But we shared our findings with Facebook. Its parent company, Meta, says this type of content violates its policies, and it encourages people to report it if they see it. No response from Craigslist. Asha Tomlinson, CBC News, Toronto.
You can catch the full Marketplace investigation tomorrow night. The Secret Cost of Housing airs on CBC television at 8 p.m., 8:30 in Newfoundland. It's also available on GEM. Well, a troubling trend is emerging in Ontario as measles cases double in just 2 weeks.
I feel very angry that it's completely preventable.
Why some doctors are calling it a public health failure. An Indigenous woman's death unsolved for 30 years. Now her sister is taking matters into her own hands.
No civilian should feel that they have no options but to investigate the death of their loved one themselves.
The Fifth Estate investigates why the trail went cold so quickly. And a shipwreck at the bottom of Lake Superior.
We finally found it.
We're back in 2. The Alberta government is firing back at its former health services CEO over her wrongful dismissal lawsuit. The province denies wrongdoing and political interference. Julia Wong takes us through the new court documents.
The Alberta government is not holding back in countering a wrongful dismissal lawsuit filed by the former CEO of Alberta Health Services.
The Minister of Health is preparing a statement of defense on behalf of the government. I understand it's been filed.
Last month, Athana Mentzelopoulos filed a $1.7 million lawsuit against Alberta Health and the Health Authority, alleging she had been fired for investigating possible conflicts of interest and government interference in private surgical facility contracts and medical purchases like children's pain medication. In a statement of defense filed Thursday, the province pushed back, alleging an investigation failed to uncover any wrongdoing. The Alberta government alleges Mentzelopoulos had become infatuated with her investigation, and she was fired because she couldn't do her job, and then presented a dramatic tale and false narrative of political persecution to try and pressure AHS to pay up, and says while there were conversations between Mentzelopoulos and a staffer from the Premier's office about contracts, there was no pressure whatsoever.
Any issues that are being raised now by the CEO, former CEO, are internal to AHS. What we are doing is identifying if there were problems with that procurement process, and we're going to fix them, Mr. Speaker.
In a statement, Mentzelopoulos' lawyer fired back, saying the investigation cited in the statement of defense looked solely at a single contract, and Mentzelopoulos was fired before a broader investigation was done. He says she was terminated without cause and despite making budget reductions. As for the rejection, there was government pressure. Mentzelopoulos' lawyer says the example provided was one instance and significant events transpired after that. There are several investigations now underway, including by the RCMP and Auditor General. The province is also doing its own investigation. An interim report from that is expected at the end of May. Julia Wong, CBC News, Edmonton.
There's concern tonight over an alarming surge in measles cases. In Ontario alone, they have more than doubled in just 2 weeks. Jennifer Yoon shows us what some are calling a public health failure.
In this Montreal clinic, a race to contain the spread of a super contagious disease. Among the places with the measles exposure, a Habs game, a show, and the airport. In Ontario, a wider outbreak. 2 weeks ago, Ontario reported 119 cases so far this year. Now there are 277, more than double. 31 people have been hospitalized, the vast majority unvaccinated children.
I think that's really kind of a public health failure when we're seeing this many cases of a vaccine-preventable disease.
Most of the previous cases were in 2 regions of southwestern Ontario. Now they're popping up across much of the province.
Hi, baby.
This mom is terrified for her newborn, who can't get the shot yet. There are cases in the Niagara region where she lives.
She's too little, she has no protection, and it's very contagious, so I even worry just bringing her out. I feel very angry that it's completely preventable. It was almost eradicated.
Measles killed an Ontario child last year, and doctors say it needs to be taken seriously.
It's not the benign childhood illness that some people like to make it out to be.
But those wary of vaccines are hard to convince.
Sometimes it's difficult to be able to talk to people in terms of the reasons of vaccination.
Measles is so contagious, those who are unvaccinated and exposed are at serious risk of getting ill and infecting others. And it's almost impossible to track down every case.
We don't have enough people who are vaccinated, and that's why this has taken off in the community that it has.
There is no cure for measles. The only protection is vaccination. Public health officials are stressing the vaccine is safe, it's been used for decades, and it's effective in stopping the spread and saving lives. Jennifer Yoon, CBC News, Toronto.
An Ontario woman is calling on police to re-examine her sister's death, unsolved for decades.
I question this whole scenario in terms of how did her body end up there?
The Fifth Estate uncovers the questionable coroner's report in the case. And Rosie's here with that issue. There she is.
Hey, Adrian, just hours after Canadian officials met with Trump's Commerce Secretary, we'll talk about whether it made any difference.
We've been ripped off for years, and we're not going to be ripped off anymore.
Could negotiations change Trump's mind? And ahead of Mark Carney's cabinet shuffle, we'll talk about what's at stake for him. Chantal, Althea, and Andrew join me to talk about that and more.
The Fifth Estate has uncovered new details about the investigation into the death of Sonya Cywink. Her body was found 3 decades ago, one of hundreds of missing and murdered Indigenous women in Canada whose cases remain unsolved. And Connie Walker shows us her sister has been trying to solve it on her own.
She was small, very petite. She wasn't really tough. She wasn't really made tough.
In 1994, Maggie Cywink's sister Sonya was found here, in a small park 40 kilometers outside of London, Ontario. Frustrated by a police investigation that she thinks has gone cold, Maggie has taken to the streets of East London to try to find answers for herself.
The last place she was seen was across the street there.
Maggie is investigating tips and interviewing people who claim to have information about her sister's murder.
No civilian should feel that they have no options but to investigate the death of their loved one themselves.
Maggie's lawyer, Jessica Zita, thinks she might not be in this position if police had investigated more thoroughly 30 years ago. We obtained the original coroner's report. It said Sonya was found partially clothed in a ditch with over 20 contusions and abrasions on her body. The cause of death was blunt force trauma associated with cocaine intake, but whether it was accidental or homicide cannot be determined. The undetermined ruling was made a year after Sonya's death, around the same time that the original OPP investigation seemed to wind down.
I question this whole scenario in terms of how did her body end up there? Why was she positioned in the way she was? Why was she partially clothed? And we put it all together, and it's a fucking homicide, regardless.
In 2016, Chief Pathologist Michael Polanin came to the same conclusion. After reviewing Sonya's case, he determined the manner of death is homicide.
It's not just a question about Sonya. It's a question about hundreds, and I mean hundreds, of other cases that have been also undetermined.
The OPP declined our interview request, but said Sonya's case is active and ongoing.
Okay, so Connie, that's pretty interesting. The police say that the case is still active, but as I understand it, Maggie's own investigation is making some headway.
Absolutely. She's conducting her own robust investigation. As you see in the piece, she's canvassing the streets of East London, and it's been paying off. She's been getting tips. She's been tracking down people of interest, conducting her own interviews with people who say they have information about Sonya's murder, really grilling them. She's even made clandestine recordings of one source who says she was with Sonya the night she was killed and had information about the assault and identities of other witnesses. Now, Maggie's passed on that information and the recording to the OPP and is hoping they will follow up.
Okay, a lot more to come. Connie Walker, so great to see you. Thank you.
Thanks, Adrienne.
The Fifth Estate's investigation, A Sister's Promise, airs tomorrow night at 9 p.m. on CBC Television and GEM and on YouTube tomorrow afternoon. So now, let's break down the week in politics. Rosie's here with that issue.
At issue tonight, Trump's trade war. Donald Trump says he will not bend on steel and aluminum tariffs.
We've been ripped off for years, and we're not going to be ripped off anymore. No, I'm not going to bend at all, aluminum or steel.
Canadian officials are meeting with the Commerce Secretary. Howard Lutnick has been critical of Canada's response.
What does Canada do? They put a tariff on sports equipment. I mean, really, this is just, it's tone deaf.
So what does this meeting mean for trade tensions between the U.S. and Canada? Can cooler heads prevail? I'm Rosemary Barton here to break it down again tonight. Chantal Hébert, Andrew Coyne, Althea Raj. Good to see everyone. I mean, we are talking tariffs pretty much every week, but it's because they're on, they're off, they're back on. What I think was interesting this week, beyond that, was the way Howard Lutnick reached out to Doug Ford, asked for a meeting. Doug Ford, not going ahead with the tariffs on energy. There's some interesting moves there, and I'm not sure what, if anything, they tell us. Chantal.
And then you turn to me.
And then I turn to you.
Yeah, right. I'm not sure that they mean a lot. I think what we've seen over the past month and a half is that it doesn't really matter what any Secretary of State in this cabinet says, because in the end, the mood that Donald Trump has, depending on the time of the day or the night, is going to dictate for at least a few hours what policy will be in place. So whatever, it may have been a productive meeting. I don't know. We weren't in the room. No. But whether that is a step forward, I very much doubt. Why? Because I'm not convinced that it has any impact on where Donald Trump is going to take this. I believe the only thing that can have impact on this president and this administration is pressure from American voters and American business, not meeting with whoever, and as well-meaning and effective as they may be, Canadian politicians.
But surely that proves the point a little bit, Andrew, that the tariff on energy that Doug Ford was threatening, 25% tariff, got their attention, and to the point that Howard Lutnick had to call him, and then the president rolled back the additional tariffs on steel and aluminum. He was threatening 50%. I mean, does that not show that some part of our strategy is working?
Some part is. I'm not sure this part is. I think these meetings are, if anything, worse than useless. The premise of them is there's some set of demands, some reasonable demands that the United States has that we can at least go partway to meeting. And if we do that, we'll somehow resolve this conflict and put it to bed. I don't see any evidence that there's any such demands. I think Canadian negotiators or Canadian government officials have tried in vain to find out what exactly might be those sort of demands. And I'll repeat what the Prime Minister said, that the most likely scenario, the most likely explanation of whatever is going through Donald Trump's head is that this is purely punitive, this is purely designed to harm the Canadian economy with a long-run ambition of making it so painful and so difficult to carry on as a country that people will be suing for peace, suing for annexation. Whether or not that's the case, it doesn't seem to me to be anything achieved by this except to make this normalized, to make them look reasonable, like they're involved in some kind of actual negotiation. As Chantal said, our best weapon in this is American public opinion. And every time the president slams on tariffs on Canadian exports and imports into the United States, he's hurting his own consumers and losing part of his base. So the best thing that we can do, it seems to me, is to keep the pressure on. Every time we apply tariffs, we may not be hurting them much directly with our tariffs, but we goad them into overreacting in the way that the president is given to doing and disqualifying himself and making himself look, as what he is, extreme and irrational.
Althea?
I think two things happened this week. One is actually Doug Ford was more successful perhaps than he intended to be. His threat of cutting off the power got everybody scared. And the impact was that the White House panicked and decided to charge its own citizens for more. And then the kind of off-ramp that Howard Lutnick negotiated with Canada got Canada to ease. But it didn't help, it saved American pain. It didn't help Canadians. No, but the background of that is actually, it feels like Doug Ford was freelancing on his own. And in that call with the Council of the Federation, he was told, like, you can't just do this because you're escalating a trade war that will affect the rest of us. So if we want to escalate, I think the message from this week was we need to be united and sing from the same songbook. And we can't make big moves without everybody being on board.
Yeah, and that's probably why Doug Ford today was saying things like, I'm speaking for myself. I'm not speaking for anybody else, because other premiers sure didn't like that. Chantal?
Yes, but Doug Ford is the leading premier in this battle. Why? Not just because he's comfortable with a 4-year majority government that he's leading, but also because he leads the country's biggest economic engine. If a smaller province tried to do what he did, it would hardly get any attention in Washington. So he is part and parcel of the federal government's strategy. I'm assuming that the time that Mark Carney spent with Premier Ford, more time than he has spent to date, as far as I can tell, with any premier, and the fact that that relationship with Finance Minister Dominique LeBlanc and the Ontario Premier is so strong, also means that the federal government is not being blindsided every step of the way by Ontario.
No, I would suggest that Doug Ford is a convenient bad cop in these negotiations. Andrew, last word to you, then I'm going to take a break.
You just took the words right out of my mouth. I'm generally in favor of premiers singing from the same hymn book, ideally the federal hymn book in these things, and on the assumption that this is coordinated, and you can't always assume that with Doug Ford. But yeah, the having this kind of loose cannon, if you will, and the Fed saying, look, we're not doing this. This is the Premier of Ontario doing this, and you know what loose cannon he is. It does have some effectiveness.
Okay, we're going to leave it there, but you set us all up nicely for the next part of this. We are going to talk about Mark Carney as he prepares to become Prime Minister tomorrow.
Mark is going to be a fantastic Prime Minister. He's the leader of my party. He has my full support.
Mark Carney will become Canada's 24th Prime Minister tomorrow. What will the team around him look like? What message will the Cabinet send to the country? That's next. At issue, Mark Carney's cabinet. The next Prime Minister is opting for a leaner cabinet focused on the trade war. Some ministers will be out, while others will see their roles change.
Mark Carney will be sworn in tomorrow as our new Prime Minister, and it will be his prerogative to tell us who will be part of his next cabinet.
What will the Carney cabinet tell us about his approach and who will stay to take on Trump? Let's bring everyone back. Chantal, Andrew, and Althea. Althea, we are all sort of doing what we do in Ottawa, which is trying to figure out who's going, who's staying. We don't always know, but we have a couple of things that we do know in terms of who's staying. Melanie Joly, for instance, staying in the role of Minister of Foreign Affairs. What are you going to be watching for tomorrow?
Well, basically, how much change is Mark Carney bringing? So we already know that the cabinet will be much smaller. How small, we don't yet know. I've tried to count. I can't get below 21, so I'm guessing it's around that. There already have been signals of huge changes. Some caucus members are calling it a purge. Mark Miller at Immigration, Mark Holland at Health. In some cases, I think these were surprises. Mr. Holland announced that he is not running again. Diane Le Boutillier, Fisheries Minister out in Gaspé, is gone. So is the Quebec Lieutenant of Justin Trudeau and a Quebec City Area Minister, Jean-Yves Duclos. In terms of the new people, well, I don't know about you, Rosie, but I've called a bunch of people today who are not answering their phones, who normally respond. So they're being good soldiers and not calling back and probably on their way to Ottawa tomorrow. So there's a lot of new faces, some promotions, I suspect. I should say that. And then I think it's, how Mr. Carney positions himself in terms of what the message he wants to send. Mr. Trudeau did that with renaming ministries. Environment and climate change, for example, he had changed. The Indigenous Services portfolio he changed. Is he going to create new ministries that we don't have names yet to refocus our attention? It was interesting, I will note, that they shuffled Stephen Guilbeault out of the Environment and Climate Change portfolio. Apparently he's still in cabinet. But he is a lightning rod out west on the carbon tax issue, on the pipeline issue. And so removing him, I think, sends a strong signal. The fact that he remains in cabinet, though, is an olive branch, I think, to Quebecers.
There's going to be a lot of, from what we understand, consolidating of ministries in order to get down to those numbers that,
only way you can do it
is talking about. Yeah. So you're going to, this is kind of the first test for Mr. Carney on a bunch of fronts, Chantal, because you're going to upset some people. The way that they seem to be selling it is to say, well, this is just the cabinet for now to get us, into the election and through the election so we can deal with other things going forward. But tell me what you're watching for on that front in terms of how he manages people and their expectations.
Well, for one, if you're going to cut the cabinet down to about 20, everybody's going to have a real job. I don't think you need to invent new portfolios. You have to consolidate what's around the table. Second, I think the most important thing to watch for is whether those frontline ministers who are dealing with the Canada-U.S. file on a daily basis are staying in place, starting with Finance Minister Dominique Leblanc. Because what you do not need is, at the beginning of an election campaign, people who are kind of on a learning curve in these portfolios. Yes. We've seen it this week. Stuff will happen that will require responses, government responses, between now and whenever the campaign ends in 6 or 7 weeks. So you need ministers who actually know what they're doing, who have staff in place. Yeah. Finally, yes, Stephen Guilbeault, as far as I can tell, I'm told, is getting larger responsibilities. And he would be. If you're staying, you're getting more work.
Yeah.
Because there is less bodies around the table. So it's not a demotion. And actually, the places where you send people who are demoted, as in, the shelf watching ministry, those won't exist in this smaller cabinet. Yeah. The impression they're trying to send is not that they're saving money. It's that this is a war cabinet, like a unity cabinet if the referendum had resulted in a defeat for federalism. A smaller team to be more focused on what they will describe for the entire campaign as an existential crisis.
Yeah. Andrew, and then I know you went back in there, Althea. Andrew.
I leave to my colleagues the speculation on who will occupy which post, but to me, the absolute revolution in this is the numbers. If they come in with a cabinet of less than 20, that will be the smallest cabinet since the 1950s. It's not coincidental that the decline of cabinet as a decision-making body and of cabinet ministers as having any real responsibilities coincided with the rapid expansion to these ridiculous numbers where we've had close to 40 cabinet ministers. The larger the cabinet, the smaller the minister. When you have 12 ministers or 15 or 20 ministers around the table, they're all basically players. When you have 40, they basically turn into ants. And to get to those numbers, you have this proliferation of meaningless titles, overlapping responsibilities where it's not clear who's really responsible for what. They're basically handed out as tokens and as baubles to coveted interest groups or demographics or regions of the country, and we get further and further away from the actual business of cabinet, which is governing the country. If you cut it down to less than 20 or even close to 20, you are sending a signal that cabinet government is back. You are sending a signal that we are in serious times and we need serious a serious governing model, you are certainly sending a signal that you have made a major break with the way in which this country has been governed, not just under Justin Trudeau, but under a number of previous prime ministers.
Yeah, so it would send that message of change that he's hoping to be able to send here, while he still has to keep some of those key figures inside in some way. Althea, then Chantal.
Okay, a few things.
Yeah.
On the unity thing, one of the big things to watch tomorrow is there an actual surprise? Is he reaching out across the aisle and putting people from different partisan stripe in his actual cabinet? What happens to Karina Gould and Chrystia Freeland? Ms. Freeland seems to suggest that she's in there. We haven't heard peep squat from Karina Gould. If she is not in there, I know she represents a left side of the flank that Mr. Carney is not necessarily a fan of, but there will be some management of caucus that will need to be done on that. On the question of such a small cabinet, it means that representation somewhere will suffer. Either it's regional representation, or it's gender, or it's ethnicity, or it's religion, and those stakeholders will also take some management because they are not going to be happy. Yeah. And last, I would say on the whole, the original team behind the Canada-U.S. response, I think we had spoken about that last week. Yep. I don't expect a lot of changes, but I do think that Dominic LeBlanc could easily move over to a portfolio, a Canada-U.S. portfolio in my imaginary cabinet, Canada-U.S. intergovernmental affairs portfolio, because he doesn't need to have the finance behind him. And frankly, a budget is about to be delivered in about 2.5 months, and it might be good to have somebody who actually is more focused on the finances of the country than Dominic LeBlanc's skills, which are frankly people skills that are attuned to the Canada-U.S. intergovernmental. And we see that with Doug Ford and this, the meeting with Lutnick, for example.
Yeah, I have also heard that theory that there's a way to move him around so that he's doing the things that he's best at and let someone deal with, like, to your point, the budget and the other things. Chantal.
But the last time we talked about a lead minister on Canada-U.S. who was in finance or foreign affairs was a minister who didn't have a ministry.
That's right.
And it's all nice to say intergovernmental affairs, but you're kind of not putting the way behind the title that you should be, and that rightly Chrystia Freeland declined on that basis. So we'll see tomorrow on that particular thing. Yes, representation will be diminished. I'm wondering, looking at all the names of people who aren't in cabinet, whether there will be more than one minister east of Montreal, and what does that mean for the battle against the Bloc Québécois? A final word on Karina Gould. She's from Burlington. Sometimes you feel like déjà vu. I watched Paul Martin become prime minister and then find a way to send out of cabinet and caucus Sheila Copps, who was from the same area. And I'm thinking, is history really, really going to repeat itself? And by the way, that sent a really bad signal to a large section of the Liberal Party and to many, many female voters.
Yeah, he paid the price for that one, for sure. Quick 10 seconds to you, Andrew.
Just two quick things. One is it'll be interesting. There's been some talk that he might appoint a conservative, small C or large C to the cabinet. That will be interesting to see in terms of national unity. And the other thing, and Chantal's made this point many times, is what's going to be the response in terms of the cabinet making of Pierre Poilievre? He's been the front runner for so long. He certainly had the opportunity to be able to attract people to run for him with the promise of cabinet posts. Can he put up a cabinet that is of equal stature or comparable stature to the one that Carney is going to unveil?
Very good point. Thank you all for that. That is at issue on the National for tonight. We're going to keep talking. We'll talk about Justin Trudeau's calls at the end of his prime ministership to fix the PM's residence at 24 Sussex. You can catch that on YouTube or the At Issue podcast. Now back to Adrian in Toronto.
Thank you, Rosie. Coming up, a shipwreck lost for more than a century finally found.
It's one of the holy grails of the shipwrecks. It had been missing 132 years.
The story of the Western Reserve and its remarkable discovery next in our moment. You're looking at a very old photograph of the Western Reserve. The freighter had been missing ever since it sank in the stormy waters of Lake Superior in 1892. 27 people died that day, with only a single survivor left to tell the tale. More than a century later, the ship has finally been found, and the discovery is our moment.
It's one of the holy grails of the shipwrecks. Everybody's been looking for it, and we finally found it. in the Western Reserve. She was one of the first steel freighters built on the Great Lakes. She was built to haul record loads. However, back in 1892, Captain Peter Minch and his family were taking a summertime cruise. So he's got 6 of his family members on board, and the crew got into a storm. The beam broke, and the Western Reserve went down within 10 minutes. A gentleman named Harry Stewart, who was the only one to make it to shore alive, is a tragic story. One person survived, 27 passed. From when the time it sank and from the time we discovered it, it had been missing 132 years. And now we can honor the 27 lost on the Western Reserve. Harry Stewart, the sole survivor, his family has reached out to us and they're elated. Now we know where the ship is.
What an amazing find, but also the Great Lakes are something. Lake Superior is the largest surface area of any freshwater lake in the world, and the estimation is that there may be as many as 8,000 shipwrecks in the Great Lakes, 30,000 people lost. Mysteries abound. From all of us at The National, thank you for being with us. I'm Adrienne Arsenault. Take care.